Welcome to the 31st episode of METACO Talks. Today, we're speaking with Pedro LOPEZ-BELMONTE, the blockchain lead at Richemont, the Swiss-based luxury company, owner of brands such as Cartier, Montblanc, Net-a-Porter, etc. Pedro is currently driving the blockchain and digital asset management strategy and roadmap for Richemont in the public and private blockchains. It makes it possible for consumers to access product history and proof of authenticity of luxury goods, from sourcing to sales, all the way to secondhand markets. Pedro, welcome to METACO Talks. And thanks for accepting our invite, and thanks for being here.
Well, thank you, Stemus. Good morning, and thank you for having me. A pleasure.
Great. So why don't we kick off? I mean, you've been, as I understand, your background is as a software engineer, and you've been in the industry for more than 20 years. You know, it'd be great to hear your journey to blockchain.
Yeah, yeah. It's I don't think it's something out of norm. I just back in 2016 I started learning about blockchain. First, what dragged my attention was Bitcoin, as I guess it was for everyone. You know, this new thing that this new money that was not regulated and so on. And I started to deep dive as well a bit into Ethereum from the cryptocurrency perspective. But soon after, I started to learn about NFTs and about the possibilities, and that was a real that was the real blow for me, right? You know, a technology that is able to enable in ownership and provenance in the digital world. I thought that the possibilities were limitless, basically, were infinite, and especially due to my professional context, I thought, okay, this is going to be great, hopefully, and I think I was not wrong. So that was a bit the journey. Soon after, we started to work with blockchain technology at the company, so till today.
I mean, that'd be interesting to talk about how you, I mean, it's a great personal journey. I mean, what's the context of how you started actually applying that in the industrial, let's say, industry use case within Richemont?
I think in the industry, it's funny because a lot of industries have been very careful, but I think the luxury industry was very keen and very interesting since the beginning, and so we started, you know, with an open mind, with an exploratory approach, trying to look and try to find out exactly if the technology was able to deliver what it was promising, and we would be able to leverage on the technology to bring value to our customers and to bring value to our business, trying to tackle, you know, existing problems. I think the first and foremost has been since the beginning counterfeiting for all the industry, and then, you know, enriching those use cases with additional features and with additional value. And I think that's where we are today, as not in a single company, but as an industry. I think there is a lot of interest, and the technology has already proven the value. We have been able to explore, to learn a bit, and now we are in a position that we can start building on the foundation that we have already built.
It's interesting because I mean, I think there's a general perception that Richemont would be a conservative brand. I mean, luxury is by definition conservative, but at the same time, your tagline is "We craft the future," right? So, how do you? Often, many of our guests that come on are from banks, and there's always the question of how you innovate in a conservative organization. You seem to bring both the conservative and the future. How do you manage the tension between the two?
I think, and I don't think it's limited to Richemont, but I think that's again an industry perspective. Obviously, each company has its own idiosyncrasy, and it, you know, dialed down or up different features or different aspects in their own way. But I think that the luxury industry has dealt always with this approach. You know, a kind of fine balance between conservatism or conservative approach in terms of heritage, in terms of tradition, in terms of the image that luxury brands represent. That's the conservative part. In terms of the emotion, even in the products that we do, they are highly emotional, right? When you go other industries like the food industry, it's also very emotional, but in a different way. But there is very common to buy a luxury piece, a jewel or a watch to celebrate something, to celebrate, your kid going into moving from childhood to manhood, or to celebrate an anniversary, a special event, graduation, wedding, etc. So it's super emotional, and this requires a lot of tradition and this kind of conservative approach and to keep the brand heritage. On the other side, we are used to innovate, in terms of industrial manufacturing, materials processing, in terms of techniques, in terms of especially on watchmaking, in terms of the complications, all the different aspects of the watches. We are continuously innovating, and we have even the responsibility of continuously innovate. First, to keep the brands interesting, to try to keep ahead of the curve, and I think that is being shown in the fact that especially the watchmaking industry is subject to a lot of counterfeiting. Right, the figures on counterfeiting they are huge. It's not only because of the price, but it's also because of this technological innovation. So I think the industry is used to work with this dichotomy, with this trying to balance these two elements, and blockchain technology has been something not new in that sense. It has been a new feature added into or a new ingredient added into the meal, and we are probably dealing with it in the same way that we deal with other innovations. We have this continuous debate between the need to improve, the need to evolve and to get better, and the need also to keep our heritage.
Of course, you've got a brand which you got to protect, and at the same time you've got to grow, basically, right?
Yeah.
It's exciting when you talked about the emotional element, and I think when I look at all the premiums, around some of the top end brands these days, it's almost a little bit of like FOMO in crypto. Basically, people want to get in, and
yes,
got to maintain that FOMO as kind of a future brand.
Exactly.
So can you talk a little bit, get into specifics? I mean, what are some of the public initiatives that Richemont's announced in regards to blockchain and token economy?
So probably our best known initiative is digital certificate for watches. We started with our brand Vacheron Constantin. More than 3 years ago, we rolled out 3 years ago the first pilot, delivering digital certificate for watches. So we basically replaced the traditional paper-based certificate with a digital token, with an NFT. That it obviously enables authenticity. It helps the customer to prove the provenance of the piece, but it also enables ownership. Right, the customer has a wallet and is able to get the digital certificate into its wallet and prove the ownership, transfer if it's if the customer wants to sell the piece or to give it to someone else. So probably that's the best known, and today we are issuing digital certificates for all Vacheron watches that are being produced right? So yeah, I think that's a huge achievement, and we have a lot of trust, and I'm sure probably more brands will follow. We have some other interesting initiatives. For example, we are using blockchain to certify our intellectual property. And recently we have jumped into the NFT, into the sexy NFT world, you know, digital art and so on. With Panerai, our brand Panerai announced 2 or 3 weeks ago the release of an NFT. These days, by the way, the watchmaking event, the watchmaking fair, Watches and Wonders, is happening in Geneva. And on Wednesday, another of our brands, IWC, announced another NFT project. So, you know, we are now trying to move ahead, build on what we have, and you know, explore new territories.
I mean, your NFTs initiatives sound very exciting. I mean, we've obviously seen NFTs have a huge impact on the art world, the collectible world, which I suppose bridges into your space. I mean, you've started with the certificates, which I guess can be leveraged in probably even almost like a 3-dimensional way, leverage that into the NFTs. How, you know, what do you expect the impact of NFTs to be on the luxury and fashion industry?
So I think NFTs will be paramount, right? We are, in general, in the world, we are moving towards a deep digital world. But it's not something new. It has happened since more than 20 years, right? So Amazon started in 1995, something like that. So since then, we are moving towards a deeper digital experience, and digital is enabling our life in many different ways. So NFTs for luxury industry is a way to provide, to enable ownership and to enable authentication or provenance, and also transparency, right? So we are able to use the digital certificates to prove the authenticity of the piece, but also we are able to prove the authenticity of the digital token, which is equally important. When we speak about ownership in terms of tokens, we usually see the ownership of the customer. In our use case, for example, you know, a customer owning the digital certificate. But who has created this digital certificate is equally important. And I'm telling that because I'm convinced that we are going to see a surge of counterfeiting in the digital realm. There will be counterfeiters creating fake NFTs, right? So I think it's super important, you know, to educate our customers, not only on what the NFT means in terms of link with the physical piece or ownership themselves, but also in order to encourage them to check who has created the NFT. And with NFT, it's very easy. With a paper-based certificate, you cannot check who has created the paper, right? It's very easy to print, but a digital token is much more difficult to falsify. The opportunity for counterfeiters is in the illiteracy of the consumer. But if the consumer knows what to check in order to ensure who has created the NFT, there is no option for fakes. And then the NFTs are also a great way to bring something which I have already spoken, you know, is the heritage of the brand, this emotional part, you know, the fact that the digital art world is a very interesting example, because basically you can add a digital piece to an NFT, and therefore you can bring provenance to this authenticity to this piece. You can certify who created it and who owns it, right? Before that, you know, we are old enough to have used Napster and Torrent and all the digital features. And those were possible because in the digital world, digital assets digital asset provenance was not possible. With NFTs is possible. So now if we bring that to the luxury industry, we are able to add a lot of elements, pictures, videos, documents, etc., that contributes to tell the history. On one side, to tell the history of the piece, of the watch or the jewel, but also to tell the relationship between that piece and its owner. And I think that's great. I think that's great because it will represent a lot to customers. And lastly, we move in the latest trends of the metaverse and so on. That will also enable the customers to really use these digital assets across different metaverses, which I think is what's going to be the real meat in the bone.
It's a fascinating direction and future you're describing. I mean, clearly the potential is huge. I mean, what do you see what's the role of luxury brands in delivering these NFTs to customers? I mean, you've got obviously the safe custody of these tokens you talk about, so managing the keys, the attestation. I mean, clearly there's removing friction because it's still managing keys is not trivial still. I mean, it's getting better, but is it all of the above, or how do you prioritize these things?
I think it's all. But obviously we need to start step by step. But clearly, if we cannot use the NFTs to tell the history and heritage of the piece and the brand, and as I said, the relationship with the customer, it loses a bit of power, right? But on the other side, so that's the side of building on top of that. That's the side of bringing value to the customer. At the end, it's that. Bringing something special to the customer. But then you mentioned something which I think is key. It's paramount. It's the friction, right? The friction is an obstacle, and in the digital world, friction means lack of adoption. When we start seeing that when you ask the customer to download yet another app in the phone, is like, oh, okay, now I had 200, now I go for the 201, right? So and that's a problem. The friction is the problem. The friction when we move into setup, for example, a Web3 wallet, a decentralized non-custodial wallet in the jargon, is huge for maybe for individuals like you or me, which we are already in this since a while. It's our bread and butter. It doesn't represent any friction. But what sometimes professionals in this ecosystem we don't realize is that those simple actions that we understand and that are part of our daily routines, they represent a huge mountain to climb for the majority of the people, for the majority of the individuals in this planet. Setting up the wallet, backing up your keys, all these elements, they don't understand why, they don't understand the implications of that. So I think the role of the industry, whatever industry now, the luxury industries as well, the role of that we have as an industry is to educate the customer and to help them transition from this Web 2.0 into Web 3, right? In many ways, in terms of managing the credentials, in terms of help them understand how to use these credentials, what are what they imply for them, what are the implications for them. So for me, friction is paramount. If in any project, if you don't take into consideration the friction, I think it might not be a failure, but for sure it won't be a success. And I think it's our responsibility as well to help introduce our customer base into this world in a fluid way. And in that case, key management, as you have mentioned, I think it plays a key role.
a key role, no question. I mean, I think we're probably both old enough to remember the moment when the Apple came out and they all of a sudden made computers easy. I think it's still, we're waiting for our Apple moment in the space, right? I mean, we're both working towards that.
Exactly. Yes.
It's still, I think we, as you say, as insiders, we kind of forget that it's still quite complicated. But
yes.
You made an interesting reference about the metaverse. I mean, already we have you know, people displaying their CryptoPunks or their apes as on their social media. I mean, how do you view the metaverse of luxury? How do you view that? Obviously, that's being created now. How do you think that's going to evolve, basically?
Well, I think it depends. First, we need to set up the concept of metaverse, because I think each one has their own conception of metaverse. There is a common belief that metaverse is, you know, this 3D virtual world, you know, call it Decentraland, call it Sandbox, even call it Second Life, which is a metaverse as well. And I think this is just a manifestation of the metaverse. If we speak about the metaverse, for me, the metaverse is more a philosophy than a specific implementation, right? And it's probably, the metaverse, I would say, is the ability for an individual to communicate and interact with other individuals, regardless their physical location, through digital tools, right? I would abstract it in that way. And the 3D metaverses that there are today, I think they're a good part. They provide, you know, this anonymity by representing the users with the avatars and providing something cool, something digital, which is very flexible. What I like also about the digital space in those 3D worlds is that the creativity is great, because you are not subject to physical world rules. You know, the laws of physics are not working there, obviously. So there is a lot of potential and a space for creativity, for really let the imagination fly and bring some really cool experience. But at the same time, I think there is some friction. We go back to the friction, right? Either we interact, you know, through our computer or through our tablet or mobile phone, which is a flat screen, which is already a friction. You know, it's even if we are used to work with that, it's not natural, right? And if we think about the little actions that annoy ourselves every day about using our iPhone or our phone or our computer, we realize that's the case. Some 3D worlds also, they propose the headset, you know, the virtual 3D headset, even some additional gear like gloves or whatever. Yep. And while this is super cool, but it's again another point of friction. So it means that it's not natural to the human being. You know, I need to put myself into a device and interact with something. And usually the first time you put a headset, you get a bit of dizziness. So it requires also a ramp up over a few days. And then the movement, you need a room for yourself, that you're not going to hurt yourself while you are immersed into this experience.
Like Ready Player One type scenario.
Exactly. So I think first, there is no single metaverse. There are a lot of manifestations, and there is a lot of elements to come with less friction, right? I've seen, I'm a true believer of holograms. I think holograms have the potential to integrate with human behavior in the most natural way, because even if it's an external device, you can bring something 3D, you know, in without the need of any putting into any device and so on. So that's just my approach or my vision, right? But in that way, I believe new experiences will arise, and if we add that into the luxury space, I think that will happen. I've seen the last year a couple of initiatives to build the luxury metaverse. I wish them the best of luck, even because I have some, you know, collaterally, I have some skin into that. That would be great. and I think it will be a great exploratory work, but for the moment, I don't think they will have a lot of success, because we need to think about what luxury means. You know, exclusivity. It means also feeling a part of a club. That's why you choose a brand over another. So it means a lot of things that for the moment I don't see materialized in a specific metaverse. I think the current metaverses can provide some of these features, but I think we need some evolution in order to integrate this metaverse experience also with this luxury heritage, with these emotional stories that each one of us have with and relationship that have with all these pieces. So what I believe is that at least the features such as scarcity and exclusivity are guaranteed not by the metaverse, which needs to evolve, but today they are guaranteed by NFTs, right? The difference, if we look at what Second Life meant, Second Life, I think it didn't go mainstream, in my opinion, because it was lacking this layer of ownership in their economy. They had an economy, and it was super powerful, and there were luxury brands doing something in Second Life, if we remember, but the experience was completely confined to that metaverse, right? With the NFTs, we are able to extract, to extend the economy outside the confinement of the metaverse, right? So this is something that I think is the key change, the game changer.
I think it's a fascinating way to look at it. The philosophical approach rather than this is our specific metaverse. You know, I have to ask, you know, once you get into that, let's say metaverse, however we define it, how will people differentiate between luxury goods and kind of mass market ones? Is that just certification and limited sort of availability?
Yep. Exactly. Yet again, with NFTs, right? With NFTs, brands can leverage on them to ensure scarcity, exclusivity, uniqueness. Right? It's on these three elements where brands can bring value, where brands can tell the story. Right? There is a lot of storytelling as well. So it's through that where they can leverage on these features to tell the story to the customer, and the customer can rely on this on the NFTs to ensure the veracity of you know, this story, to ensure about the scarcity, about the exclusivity, and also to ensure the ownership, right? So whether as a customer, it doesn't matter if I'm, you know, enjoying my my NFT in my phone, or if I go to one of these metaverses and you know, I bring my digital version of the luxury piece with me. It's the NFT that guarantees that I'm the owner, and therefore I feel part of the story, right? So I think that's the key value and also the game changer in terms of the digital experience for luxury goods.
You know, given you're in the space, you'll know as soon as you create something of value, it can then be fractionalized, right? I mean, how does that, have you thought, how does that impact exclusivity and kind of brand maintenance?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think we need to differentiate. So not everything can be fractionalized, right? If we take into account, you know, a piece of art, which sometimes is a good parallelism, or an exclusive jewel, you know, the tiara, for example, of Princess Grace, which was made by Cartier. You know, the fact that it was made by Cartier, it's already something, right? But the fact that it was super special, it was belonging to a very specific person in a specific moment of time, it brings the piece to another level, basically. Absolutely. Right? Does it make sense to tokenize that? Maybe. I think most of these pieces, as well as art pieces, are even now in many countries are owned by the state, are paid by everyone's taxes, right? We have the British National Museum, the Louvre, the Museum of Prado in Spain. So, and all of them are paid by taxes, and it makes sense because they tell our story. As countries, as individuals, exactly. Yeah. So does it make sense to tokenize these elements? I think it might make sense, to for example, to enable some additional stories over those pieces, to raise funding for specific causes, or to raise funding, to take care of them better, and so on. So for unique pieces, I think it makes all the sense to tokenize. For less unique pieces, I don't know. Who cares about my watch? If I want to, exactly. If I want to tokenize my watch, okay.
Maybe your kids want a share of your watch, but otherwise, yeah.
Exactly. What I believe in it's tokenized in a different way. So I see the tokenization of elements in two ways. You can tokenize, we can issue a single token over a piece, right? Yeah. For utility purposes. For example, who can care about my watch? My insurance company, for example, they will care about my token of the watch because it helps them to check that what I've declared is truth, because the token has been created by a company. Or if I want some trendy something which is now trendy in the DeFi space, if I want to use my my watch as a collateral for a loan, I can, with the token, we can remove friction and articulate it faster and better, right? And then we have the other way of tokenizing things, multiple tokens, multiple ownership, and maybe not tokenizing the 100% of the piece, which I think it belongs more to these unique pieces, to these unique tiaras or jewels or pieces of art, and that's becoming part of a community. It's a complete different experience. But I think both of them has its place in the space.
I mean, you touch on something. Once the value gets tied to a digital token, then the digital token to a degree defines the value of the real world asset. But you could leverage into DeFi and everything else that comes. Fascinating, exactly. Basically. We don't have much time, but I know there's a couple more questions I wanted to touch on. Kind of stepping away. Very interesting topic, and I'm ignoring some questions here, unfortunately, because we want to go through some other things. But I'd love to have you back talk about NFTs again. But from a, let's say, corporate perspective, given you're already looking at tokens from kind of the client side, internally, are you exploring use cases, things like stable coins and the balance sheet, payments, treasury, this type of thing? Is that something that's a topic of good discussion at the corporate level?
We are looking to different things, right? I think obviously I cannot speak about what we are specifically looking into.
Just generally.
But from a general perspective, my opinion is that specifically on the DeFi and on the stable coins, the action has happened in the banking industry, right? Has been either the traditional banks or these new banks or companies or startups trying to make the industry more dynamic, right? And I think they are doing a good job. If we move to traditional industries outside the banking one, I think it's a matter of time. I think it's a matter of time that the industry, all the industries, all the companies start to have stable coins and crypto in their balance sheets. What I think it needs to happen, and it has not happened yet, is regulation. This will be enabled by regulation. Today, regulation is very clear with fiat currencies, with the traditional book and accounting keeping. You need to do a KYC process, AML processes. It's super regulated, but for traditional assets, but it's not that clear yet for crypto or stablecoin assets. It has started to happen. But I think companies and especially finance teams won't jump into that till they don't see very clear regulation, and especially for multinational companies, very clear regulation across the whole globe, globally. So that needs to happen. Regulation needs to happen. But clearly, I think everyone is looking into a lot of different aspects of the technology, and in my opinion, it's just a matter of time. I'm not a finance expert, but I think stable coins specifically opens up a lot of possibilities for companies.
Absolutely. I know we touched on a little bit about the frictions earlier, and there's always that expression in the market, well, not your keys, not your assets, or not your certificate, or not your NFT. Any advice for companies that are looking at the space, but that might not be experts, obviously, around cryptography or key management, how to basically build a solution in a safe and scalable way?
Well, so here I will put my hat of individual and crypto geek, and I will endorse 100% not your keys, not your asset statement. Absolutely. And I think it's part of this philosophical approach to understand what are the implications of that. It's a huge change in terms of mindset. It's a model change coming from this traditional centralized management to this decentralized approach, right? And it gives us freedom, but also it gives us responsibility. It comes with the responsibility of doing our due diligence and our duty to manage our assets responsibly. So in that point, there is a lot of friction. So when a company, my recommendation, when a company wants to jump into the world, into this world, they need to think very clearly. If as a company we propose something into Web3, which is non-custodial, it will be very much aligned with blockchain and decentralized best practices, but it will have a lot of friction. Right. So as we said before, it will be great for crypto geeks, a tiny fraction of the world population. It won't be great for the rest of us. So we need, in my opinion, I think I see in the future a non-custodial world in terms of key management, but we are not there yet. I think now we need to think on a transition, right? Crypto geeks are there to, to be as the beacon of where we want to go. But if I put my hat of professional in the industry, I advocate for flexibility, for openness, maybe to give our customers the chance of, having on one side a non-custodial way of managing their assets for those who feel comfortable with that, but provide a custodial way for most of our customers, which for the moment they don't know anything. I always call this the test of the mother. If my mother it knows how to do it swiftly, then it will work. If not, there is a lot of friction. So custodial approach and key management by companies, I think in these days, in this very moment, is the way is the door to open crypto to the mainstream. Okay, and I have to say that it cannot be done in any way. I see these days a lot of people which basically what they propose is traditional Web 2.0 approach, and they say, yeah, there are some keys behind, but how are these keys managed? Does the company has access to that? Can operate the company through these keys without the consent of the user? So I think the setup is key. In that way, what I think and what we propose actually with Vacheron Constantin is this way of helping the customers to transition softly into this Web3. The proposal is open, so they have a fully Web3 way to manage that, or they have a custodial approach where we make things easier for them and frictionless, but at the same time we obviously manage their keys, but we manage their keys in the way that there is no way, literally, that anyone within the company can operate the keys on behalf of a specific user. Okay, there is no way. I'm not going to enter into the details, but I can guarantee that we have done a huge effort to design a system that first matches with this approach. So we call it Web 2.5. and then in the future, we are ready to segregate keys to our customers whenever they are ready. Okay, so not in the future, in the present actually we can do it. So I think that's a good approach, and my recommendation to any company would be to, try to get this approach. Think twice about, try to understand first what the non-custodial approach implies, and try to think on the best way to provide a custodial experience which is meaningful.
Right. I mean, I think it's a great approach, and it's interesting. Philosophically, we have the same approach to the future, based on the idea that people will more than likely want to externalize to a custodian just because it's easier. It's removes complexity, but always have the option to be able to take control of your keys for whatever reason you want. So, Pedro, it's been super interesting. I think we made a mistake with this episode. We should have made this an hour. We had a lot of topics to cover, and I've ignored. I couldn't even get to the questions, and this is probably the most questions we've had on any episode. So I apologize to all those that submitted a question. But it's been a real pleasure to have you here today, and on METACO Talks. Thanks for your time. Do you have any sort of parting words, last things you want to say before we sign off?
Well, I would say not your keys, not your crypto, for example. But in the meantime, give also a space for people that don't feel comfortable with that, and that maybe they are not prepared to get into the crypto ecosystem in a softer way. The thing that all of us we need to take in common is to do our due diligence. Now is the Web3. More than beyond key management implies each individual needs to do due diligence, right? The responsibility is not of a third party right now. It's starting to rely on us, on ourselves. So I would say that would be my recommendation.
Thanks for that. Again, thanks, Pedro. So everybody, thank you for joining us today. I hope everybody enjoyed the METACO Talks. I certainly did. It's been one of the more interesting conversations we've had. We'll be back in a few weeks, and until then, have a great weekend ahead. And don't forget, all of this will be available as a recording on metaco.com/talks and most of your favorite outlets as well. So thanks for joining today, and see you next time.
Thank you for having me, and have a good day.